Hello, everyone, and welcome to Co-Creation Station, the podcast where we talk about the law of attraction, the art of allowing, spiritual magic, the mind-body-spirit connection, and how to best enjoy this mystical, miraculous, mysterious, crazy, sometimes confounding, but always incredible journey we call life. My name is Collin, and I'm located in beautiful, sunny North Hollywood, California.
My name is Stephanie, and I am a transformational life coach, and I help people shift away from negative thinking. And I'm in San Diego, California. Earlier we were talking. I'm so- in friend time, we
All
were
right.
talking about In friend time, we were talking about how we mimic people. How we
Yes.
do. And I have this song stuck in my head, I Ain't Worried by One Republic, and I keep dancing to it in my head. And then I just did this move, and I'm thinking, that's the move that makes me think of Dominique. So I'm sorry, I'm in my own little space over here.
And Dominique is your granddaughter for the.
Correct, yes.
Um,
Um,
we want to thank you so much for listening and watching, listening to or watching this episode. Each week we start our discussion here from a different jumping off point, and I guess we're going to use the one I came up with before we started
yes, we
recording,
are.
which was a quote that I heard or saw somewhere on the interwebs, and I don't remember who said it, unfortunately. But the quote is, "There's never a crowd on the leading edge."
Mm.
And as I was surprised, I didn't know if you would think it was a topic worth exploring, but as soon as I said the sentence, Stephanie, you lit up. So why did you light up when I said that?
Well, because you were like, I don't know where I heard this from. I wish I would have wrote it down. And when you said it, I was like, oh, Abraham Hicks talks about that a lot. And I felt like, oh, it piggybacks, our previous episode about how, you were saying like most of us get together and we have complain fest and we don't even think anything about it.
I don't
And
remember anything about the last episode we recorded so long ago. But thank you for refreshing my memory.
and it's so what you just said, there are so few people, when you take the whole population of the earth, that come together and speak only of what they want. There's three things, Collin, that I want to talk about here.
The
You
Earth
know,
is round, and if you took the whole
no,
Earth,
wait, the
it'd be
earth,
round like
if you
this.
took the earth, you have to watch the YouTube video to understand what we're talking about. Sorry for you listeners that are just listening. But anyways, yeah, so that makes sense, right? I mean, and that's why we're here. Like, that's really why we're here, because you and I, have come to practice the art of allowing, and we've shifted so much over the years from just having known each other. And
Why do so few people get it? Like, why did I live 30 years before I even had an inkling to it? Like, if you were going to create the universe, wouldn't you create everybody with the awareness of it?
we do have it. We do have it when we come in. We talked about this before. Children, look at small children. They have it. They know it. It's ingrained. Like it's part of their beingness. I think it's a
Well,
part
why
of
do we get
every.
trained out of it then? Why is that happening?
Well, that's a whole nother. We could do a whole podcast series on that, and we
Well, I
won't.
think that was the topic.
Oh,
Why are there so few people on the leading edge? Because the reality is, the thing I thought about that quote is, at least what I've learned from Abraham Hicks, who's a big practitioner and teacher of the art of allowing, and please Google her if you've never heard of her before. But what I've learned from Abraham Hicks is we're all at the leading edge. Like, we're all creating the new stuff, right?
yeah,
Every
you're
moment
right.
of life, we're creating
Okay,
new
you're
stuff.
absolutely right.
But a lot of people, because they're not aware of that the law of attraction is always operating and how it operates and how we could use the art of allowing to work more
For
to our
us,
advantage with the law of
yeah,
attraction.
right.
A lot of people are just creating by default, meaning they're observing current reality and going, well, I guess that's how it is, and then they just create more of that.
Yeah, yeah.
So when I see, there's so few people on the leading edge, I'm thinking, oh, well, there is a small number comparatively of people who understand the law of attraction, understand the art of allowing, and are consciously creating new stuff that other people might think was not even possible.
Yeah, yeah.
Even though the weird thing is, we see stuff that's never been done before all the time.
Yeah.
Like, I'm a not as big a sports fan as I used to be in terms of how much I spend watching it and following it, but I still watch and follow quite a bit. And it's just, it never ceases to amaze me. Like every baseball season, every football season, like some professional athlete does set some record that's actually never been set before.
Or the racetrack that
Oh yeah.
the video that you recently sent Kelly and I,
Yes.
that was phenomenal. And that he was practicing by playing that game. He was.
So now we're talking about. I can't believe I didn't come up with that as the first topic. Ross Chastain.
Yes, thank you.
Ross Chastain, who is a NASCAR Cup driver, which the Cup is the highest level of the major league of NASCAR stock car racing. At last week's race, which was the next to last race of the season, the last race is today. Actually, he's actually running today.
Oh, okay.
But there's only the top 4 drivers. We're going to make it from last week's race into the final race today to compete with, just the top 4 drivers are going to compete for the overall annual championship. And he was in 5th, and he had to pass the guy who was in 4th place so he could make it to this week's race. And he was with 1 lap to go. He was half a lap down, which is almost impossible no matter what tracks, what kind of car you got. And he had played the NASCAR video game quite a bit. And in the NASCAR video game, apparently you can do this thing on the final lap. The video game lets you, if you take your car into the wall, meaning you turn your steering wheel to the right, you hit the outside wall, and then you floor it. You basically press the accelerator down as much as you can and go as fast as you can. The video game lets you pass everybody because nobody's in that lane because they don't want to hit the wall. And the video game will let you just go around everybody and win if that's what you need to do at that point in the race. So Ross Chastain in real life, not in the video game, but in the real life, needed to pass somebody who was a half a lap ahead of him.
Pause. He had played the game over and over again.
He's done that video game. Yeah.
Multiple. We don't even know how many times. If it was 20, 50, 100, he had practiced it over and over again.
Yeah. Yeah. And so he was in the real life situation that he's been in the video game hundreds of times potentially. And he really had, I think one of the important things is he had no option conventionally. In terms of what people had already done, there's no way to make up a half a lap in whatever he had, 3 seconds.
Yeah.
So I think the second part that's important is, because in listening to interviews with other drivers who have played the game had done that move once or twice or a few times. But they would, and I think I even heard other drivers say this, I never would have tried it in real life because I didn't think it would work.
Yeah.
Meaning, if they had tried it, their thought would have been something like, well, I'll try this, but I'm pretty sure it's not going to work.
Yeah.
And Ross Chastain said in one of his post-race interviews, what he was thinking in his mind was, well, it works in the video game. Maybe it'll work here.
Fuck.
Which is, it seems like such a small change in the thinking and the words of it
is ginormous.
Maybe it'll work here.
Yeah.
But that's the letting go of resistance. That it's that crack in the door that lets the law of attraction be like, oh, all right.
and that is more belief than doubt.
Yeah.
His verbiage was belief. The other driver's verbiage was doubt.
Yeah.
Therefore, going back to whatever we think about and how we're feeling, we're creating our lives. And damn, that guy is a perfect example of practicing the vibration of what you want. And then the universe, all that is, puts it all together and
Yeah, so the end of the story for people who don't know is that Ross Chastain tried the video game move in real life. He turned to the right, which is absolutely what you should not do. And he floored it. He put his foot all the way down on the gas. And, because for those people who don't know anything about stock car racing, which is almost everyone, the reason most people thought it wouldn't work in real life is maybe this is self-explanatory, but if you go into the wall and then hit the accelerator, the conventional wisdom has always been that your car will fall apart. Like you will destroy the car in hitting the wall or, a few feet down the road, down the track.
Yeah,
Your
that you
car will
won't be
just,
able to drive that close
yeah,
to the wall without hitting it and
right,
then crashing. Yeah,
right. You will destroy your car and you won't cross the
yeah,
finish line at all.
yeah.
But Ross Chastain actually took his car into the wall, hit the accelerator full, and passed with just I mean, he probably passed the number 4 car by maybe 3 feet
Oh, I
at the
know.
very
It
end.
was like, yes.
And one thing I forgot to tell you when I sent you and my sister the video, on those videos, there's one that looks like they sped it up,
Hmm.
and it is not, none of those angles are sped up. Like the one where you actually
Yeah,
just have the view of like down the track as he comes
right,
around. It
right. Yeah,
looks like someone sped up the video like two
yeah,
times. And
yeah,
that is
yeah.
the real
Deal. That's the
time
real,
thing of him
yeah,
just
yeah,
slingshotting his car
yeah, yeah.
around.
Yeah, so please
Crazy.
YouTube it, Google it, watch the video because I
Ross
love
Chastain.
that that block of video where it has the other drivers
Yeah.
there because they're live and they record them. And
Yeah.
so they in the moment you can hear their
We have the
responses.
in-car
Yeah.
cameras and microphones of the other drivers
Yes.
who see it live. Yeah.
Yeah, I just got chills
Yeah.
all over my body. And then they also did the montage of spectators watching
Yeah.
and losing their shit, like, oh my God, and they're just like freaking out because this guy does this move that's like mind blowing, never been done before. Yeah. Woo. I feel so high right now. Like my body is like the back of my head is just like major tingles and down my thighs. I'm just like,
That's what's so crazy about that is
okay,
it happens pretty regularly.
but
Like
is it?
that one
But
thing.
is it?
Okay, yeah.
there's there's my
We were
impression of
talking
Collin.
before we were talking before we started recording about impressions and people doing impressions of each other. And I asked Stephanie to do an impression of me.
She's like, really? But is it Collin?
It's funny because most when
Uh,
professional comedians say that they do an impression for the person that they do the impression of, the most common reaction is like the person thinks that doesn't seem anything like them, and yet everyone around is like, dude, he's nailed you. So your
really?
impression of me is probably super
Really,
accurate. I
Stephanie?
just don't. I guess from my vantage point, I would say.
uh,
But anyway, but the thing is, like, I understand that that move in NASCAR had never been tried before. But what I'm aware of is that there's stories of people doing things that have never been done before all the time. Like if you check the
yeah,
news
yeah,
and you go deep enough, almost any day of the year, you'll find someone somewhere in the world did something that nobody ever did before.
yeah,
And yet, most of us get raised and sort of programmed with this thinking of like, you can only do things that have been done before. And also, if you're not good enough, then you can't do X, Y, and Z.
yeah,
And, but it's like, it's weird because we don't, I guess I get kind of fascinated with these things where like, because people who doubt are always citing evidence, which
yeah,
is, I guess what you should do. But
yeah,
it's like, but there is all this evidence. It's
right.
just you can't, if you only look at it in silos of like, well, that was a one-time thing that happened in NASCAR. This is a one-time thing that happened with an
Yeah,
astronaut. This is a one-time thing that happened with whatever. Yeah, you look at it that way and it's like, okay, it's impossible. But then when you look at like life and how that happens, it's like, oh, the people who believed they could do it or just went for it and didn't have resistance
yeah, yep.
accomplish it. The people who
Mhm.
talk themselves into I can't do it all day
Yeah.
don't do it.
Well, and are not doing, yeah, yeah, because yep, yeah,
one
yeah.
one of the most interesting stories of that for me is because I'm a huge Nirvana fan, the rock band Nirvana that was in play existed in the '90s with Kurt Cobain was the lead singer and guitar player, and there's sort of two stories. And the second one will make you think like, oh man, how did Kurt Cobain ever become successful? Because from a law of attraction, art of allowing standpoint, because at one point he made a bunch of demo tapes, cassette tapes back in the day, and sent them to every indie label that he thought that the band could get signed by, and he either never heard back or got a rejection letter back. And from people who talked to him and knew, interviewed him and stuff at the time, what they say is that he was just like, he was frustrated, he was angry, and he was saying a lot of like what you and I would say is like, ooh, like things you shouldn't say if
Yeah,
you're trying to
yeah,
attract something.
yeah.
And of course, eventually they get signed by the biggest label in the world, who only assumes they're going to sell like 100,000 records or something
Was
like that.
that later? Did they get signed by someone else and then later a bigger, or did with?
Yes, actually, if you want to go through the whole story, yeah, they got
That's
signed
what I
by
thought.
a
Yeah.
local Seattle label, and then they got,
Yes. Okay. Yeah.
but anyway, but eventually they became the biggest in a very short period of time. They became the biggest
Yeah. Oh
band in the
yeah.
world at that
Yeah.
time and sold millions and millions of records or whatever. But the thing is, in reading some of the biographies that have been written about Kurt Cobain, I came across a story when he was a kid. A lot of his neighbors and people in his town where he grew up in Washington State say that when he was really little, like 6 years old, 7 years old, 8 years old, he used to go around and just tell people that he was going to be a huge rock star.
Yeah.
And
Talking
he
about
had an
episodes like kids are badass.
yeah,
Mm. Ew.
he had an aunt that he used to make tapes for. Like he used to like just bang on a toy guitar and like shout or
Yeah.
whatever,
Yeah.
and he would send them to her.
Mm.
And she was like, when he was that age, he just had absolute faith that he
Yeah.
would be a big star
Yes.
someday.
Yes.
Um, so the weird thing about that, and or thing that sort of looks weird, is like, well, it seems like the law of attraction responded to his vibration as a kid rather than his as an
No,
adult.
but think about this. So when we ask, it is given.
Yeah.
So when he was a kid, his first desire to be world famous, like the best singer, in rockets of desire, boom, his higher self's focused on it. Law of attraction is responding to his higher self. Energetically, it's done. And then he allowed it in. Even with him saying some of those things that you said he said, he eventually allowed it in. And I remember, because I've been listening to Dave Grohl's audiobook, and in there he talks about, and I don't know if it was with the first label, must have been with the second label that signed them.
So for those people who don't know, Dave Grohl was the
The
drummer
drummer was the
of
drummer for
Nirvana.
Nirvana.
Went
Yeah.
on to become the frontman, singer, songwriter, guitarist for Foo Fighters, which is still going. But anyway.
Yeah. And he talks about when they went into a meeting, and the label had asked them, what do you want to do? And Kurt says, I want to make us the most popular song in the world, something to that effect.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And Dave just was like literally shocked, like, what? Like, how could you even say something like that? Yeah. And they did exactly that, like created a #1 hit, and it just changed the world.
Well, the other thing too is that I'm sure I think his story is a bit of like, come here, go away with law of attraction.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
If you look at it,
which we're all doing all the time. I know I do that. Oh, I want it, but I want,
But if you take what we were just talking about, like how strongly he seemed from other people's telling, how strongly he seemed to believe in it as a kid, that when he became an adult, if he was going to completely flip on that, if he had been programmed like you can't, and that stuck, I mean, the easiest thing to do is just like, don't even pick up the guitar or quit or whatever. Don't have a band, don't do shows, whatever. So as much as he was putting all these, like, he may have been putting like roadblocks, law of attraction roadblocks up, but he had a band, they had gigs, they made records, like he was doing the things that allowed,
and his desire was obviously stronger
to come into.
His desire was stronger than his fears or doubts or those limitations that we have.
Which there's something in one of the speakers in the film The Secret says that, of like, he gets frustrated sometimes when he's coaching people because they're like, well, I want to make $1 million, and what he knows is it's all about law of attraction. It's not about activities, but like they're literally they refuse to take any action that would bring in money. It's like, well, you're guaranteeing, like, if you're not open to doing some things that would, like it. I mean, it's always weird to me, like how some people will say, well, maybe someday when I win the lottery, and then you ask them and you find out they don't ever play the lottery. And it's like, how do you expect you're
But
gonna
you know what
win
is
the
super
lottery?
cool? You know what is super cool with that? Think about it. In talking about limitations and then possibilities, is like, yeah, okay, so they don't play, so they don't win, but then someone close to them does, and then gives them like however much. Do you know what I mean? Like
But this is the
the
thing. It's
universe
like,
always finds a way, can find a way. Like there's so many possibilities.
this is the thing. I mean, this gets into another topic potentially, but it's related to what we're talking about why are there so few of us on the leading edge? Because I think it is tricky to understand how different the universe works from how we're taught that it works, and to continue to practice that way of thinking until it becomes more and more natural to you. Um, but again, that's what you just mentioned, is that thing of like, most people know somebody who's won something, and it may not be like the mega millions or whatever, but and very few people um, have my luxury of being your friend, where you've won like 3,000 radio contests in your lifetime or something. But the thing is, most of us have either won a raffle or something like that, or they
Yeah,
know somebody who has,
yeah,
and yet so many people walk around going, "I never win anything,"
yeah,
or say, "Oh, you
yeah,
should play," and you go, "Well, I'm not going to play. I
yeah,
never win." And
yeah.
I'm not suggesting people should go out and buy lottery tickets or whatever, but it's just sort of like, it's one of those things of like, there's evidence that across the broad spectrum of all people, all situations, this totally
Yeah,
happens.
yeah,
And yet we learn, and some of us retain this belief of like, it can never happen for me.
yeah, and I think it's just a habit. Like, I
Yeah.
remember, someone saying, um, "Well, why do you do that?" They were cutting off the ends of the potato or the carrots. "Well, because my mom did it." Because and then when you
Yeah.
really look at it, it's like, "But
Yeah.
why? Is that really necessary?" It's just a
Yeah.
habitual, like, this is how it is, and when we stop and pause and think about it, it's like, "Is it really?" Like, is it
Yeah.
really?
No. Great discussion. Thank you for going with me on that topic. I
Of
appreciate
course.
that. We hope you got something out of the talk today. We're so happy that you joined us, either by listening or watching. Remember that we are posting a brand new episode for you at this point every Monday morning. And also, we truly appreciate you doing whatever platform you're watching us on or listening to us on, allows you to do to support the podcast. If you could like us, follow us, subscribe, comment, review, all of that stuff helps the show. It also helps other people find the show. Also, all of our social media links and our email address are in the description in the doodly doo of the YouTube video version down below. We wish you a happy and abundant and prosperous week, and we look forward to you joining us again on the next episode of Co-Creation Station. Bye, everybody.
Bye.